Pleas Court. And since 2017 in May, I've been your Common Pleas Court judge. I've handled all the heavy civil cases as the court has, all of the real estate, landlord cases, the personal injury, medical malpractice, defective pharmaceuticals, everything besides divorce and kids. And I handle all the criminal felonies from theft to capital murder. So I stay rather busy. As that bio, I think that bio was from last year with that 16 jury trials. We actually did those in 3 months. So I was in trial every single week. And for someone who's been a trial attorney his entire life, as a prosecuting attorney, as a defense attorney, as corporate, and then as plaintiff counsel as well, being in front of a jury is something I've loved. And sitting there as judge is something I absolutely do enjoy, because I get to encompass all those areas of practice I've done over my career into one omnibus role. And so it's for that I'm incredibly grateful. You know, my family escaped from Czechoslovakia to come here in the 60s. And they fled a system of justice that was closed, and it was inept, and it was corrupt. And they came after spending 6 months in a camp in Italy to America to join up with family that had been here for years. My grandfather worked in a machine factory the rest of his career, and my grandmother worked for Joseph Weiss making suits in 90-degree temperatures on the 9th floor. So they did all that, and when I was sworn in as judge last year, was the first time I lost my composure in court, because I looked out and I saw in the front row both my mother and my grandmother sitting there as I was sworn in as judge. And for me, that's incredible, because I join a system of justice that's fair, it's open, and it's prepared every day. And that's the kind of judge I've tried to be each and every day that I take the bench, because it's an absolutely amazing ability to impact and to have the better difference on people's lives, both when they go into the justice system, but also when they come out. Now, we're not here today to talk about my career, because it gets kind of boring. You know, lawyers, we talk a lot, right? Well, what I want to talk to you today about is something you probably don't expect to hear from a lawyer, or from a judge for that matter, and that's optimism. And that's optimism specifically in our legal community. You know, so often we hear about those bad things. We hear about the murders. We hear about the kidnappings. We hear about the big sentencings and the trials and the personal injury cases where somebody's hurt. We don't hear about the good stuff as much. Unfortunately, there's not enough of it. But it's one of those things that whenever we have those opportunities to talk about it, to raise the awareness of optimism and things that people are doing well in the bar and the courts, I want to make sure we do it to give people hope at the end of the day. One of those programs, as Tony mentioned, is called the Wills for Heroes program. Now, I've been blessed for the last 10 years. Well, we brought it here in 2008. And what this program does is it writes estate planning documents for first responders and spouses, absolutely free of charge. Yes, sir.
Lauren supported that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I was on the board. I wasn't on the board, but I helped create the wills for them to get signed.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
So you came out and you helped us draft them?
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
I think that's how I know you too.
That might be it too. So since we brought it here in 2008, and there's a wonderful video that I'll share, and I'll share over to the Facebook group so you can see this, that I produced this year for the 10th anniversary of the program. We brought it here in 2008 because it stemmed out of the 2001 terrorist attacks out of 9/11. When so many first responders, fire, medic, and law enforcement ran into the 2 buildings of the Trade Center and died. And they perished wearing the bulletproof vests, wearing oxygen tanks, 50 pounds of gear, but they didn't have less than 12 ounces of paper that protected them and their families when the eventuality happened. Because of that, the program is designed to absolutely do this free of charge. We take it on Saturdays, and since 2008, we've done 4 to 5 every year here in Montgomery County, and then usually 2 to 3 in other neighboring counties as far south as Hamilton as well. And we've done this so that we make sure that no law enforcement, no fire, no medic ever have to face what they do every single day, the worst of the worst, without these basic protections. In 2009, I was asked to take over, and I have led the program ever since as the lead attorney and trainer for the program, and now as judge. And every year, every one of these events, we offer a continuing legal education where I go and we talk about this. We talk about what's going on. We give the education to our attorneys, who then spend the next 6 hours or so drafting writing these documents with great partnerships from LexisNexis and the Dayton Bar Association, who's the house of the program. And we take it to different agencies. We don't just say, come on downtown to the DBA, and we'll deal with you at the Bar Association. We've done it. But the first place we check is their own agencies, their own departments. So that way we can go right into their own neighborhoods, right to where they go to work every day. And we do that to remove that barrier to them getting this. We remove the financial barrier to them getting the documents. And attorneys draft it. All legal professionals are involved in this. And I mention this because of optimism, because it sounds like we're talking about the bad things, people passing. The good part about this is, since 2008 to this year, at our August 25th event, we're on track. We're going to have 1,500 first responders helped. We're the first to know how to bring it here. We're the only ones still doing it 10 years later. I love this program. It's an absolutely amazing opportunity, but it shows the bar and the legal profession are engaged. They're involved. One of the things I loved about Judge was the fact, first of all, one of the things that I was kind of upset about being a judge is, well, I can't practice law anymore. I can't represent people. I can't help directly by helping draft these. What I found as judge is, even though I can't do that, I can be a better cheerleader for it. I can shine a brighter light on these opportunities. Because when Attorney Blaine asked for volunteers to show up, 7 out of 10 attorneys may show up. When Judge Blaine asked, we had 30 attorneys show up to do this. And we hit out of the park. We broke our record that had been set 9 years earlier. And the very next event in February this year, well, we shattered that with 65 first responders helped in one day. So that's the kind of progress that we love to see. That's the kind of optimism the bar gives back to, that the legal community is getting behind. And I'm proud to say we've done this decade of service. I'm looking forward to the next 10 years to increase those numbers, because we've been moving faster and faster and faster as we go. Another program I want to bring to your attention and showing you optimism is when people come into the legal system, we often see them, as I said, they're at their worst. They're at their very lowest points, either at the time or when they're in court. Well, we see it in adults. We also see it in kids. From 2007 to 2012, I was a prosecutor for Shelby County, Ohio, during which I had responsibility over all juvenile prosecutions in the county, from charging decision to final appeal. I also did a lot of the adult civil work up there and criminal work as well, spanning that range. But the optimism I want to tell you is that of education. Because as juvenile court prosecutor, what I was able to do, or as I should say as the juvenile prosecutor, was able to do is we saw the rise in the county of sexting and cyberbullying. We saw those issues start to creep up. We saw the prosecutions start to increase as well. Well, when a child takes a picture of themselves even and disseminates it, that's called dissemination of child pornography. So one of the things I didn't want to see these kids that go through life with an unexpungible sex offense on their record. So develop two things. First, a diversion program. So if kids got this charge leveled on them, they had a way, if they did everything, 6 months later, no charge. It was dismissed automatically, never filed. To give them a chance, so they didn't get that scarlet letter for the rest of their lives. The other thing was a program that I designed that I got into every single public school in the county, from grades 5 all the way through grade 12, twice a year, both at the beginning and at the end, as I said, for 5 years, about what this was, about how to recognize, about what would happen if these cases occurred. Well, between doing that, between getting involved in the kids to see them every single year in their schools and the diversion program, we didn't see the number of reports decline right away. We didn't see the number of incidents decline right away. We did see the number of prosecutions level off because kids were taking advantage of the program. We did then see, within the next year, a decline in the number of cases because kids were getting it. They were hearing words that they probably never heard before that are uncomfortable for us all to hear. But you know what? If I could see them in their schools, in their gyms, in their cafeterias, I'd much rather do that than when I see them in my courtrooms. that kind of optimism is there, that kind of ability to move forward, to change your life, to change the course, to really have an educational benefit. We've been doing the same thing with the opioid epidemic, going out to different churches, synagogue groups, organizations, anyone that will have us, talking about what law enforcement's doing, talking about what the courts are doing, talking about what it is. And when we started doing this, Sheriff Plummer and I, back in, I took the bench back in June last year. Well, we started it. And over 50 locations and seminars later, 9 months later, in October of 2017, for the first time in 3 or 5 years, we didn't see an increase in the number of overdose deaths. We didn't even see it plateau. We saw it decrease. We saw it decrease by 1. That was the first decrease in how many years? Since then, we've continued that decline and that decrease in number of deaths. And that's kind of optimism that I have when it comes to education. When we go out there and we talk about these problems and we talk about the issues. Because at the end of the day, if we continue to push people into the darkness to say, you live over here and we don't want to deal with your problems, what are we going to do? They're going to forever stay there. And they're going to be joined by more and more. But if we can shed light, bring them in, welcome them with open arms, and help them be educated on it, help them move past it, well, you're going to do something that is my goal every single day. And that's to not create a better criminal, but rather a better citizen. And that's something I love doing, because that's where we see the optimism that people can change. They can move forward with their lives. They can get expungements, CQEs, and move forward with their careers and become that better citizen. Third program I'd like to talk to you about as well, as far as optimism is concerned, is a program that's, well, frankly, it's been tough. And it's been tough to get the word out about this. That's something called the Certificate of Qualification for Employment. What this is a program, and it's a law, that allows you to remove a collateral consequence to employment from a felony. We all know what pardons are. The big pie in the sky to get a pardon. They're tough to get. 2% of pardons are ever granted by the governor or the president. But when they're granted, I can tell you from first-hand knowledge, they're absolutely amazing. I've had clients that went through it. To have that is just wonderful. Then you have a sealing or expungement. And that seals up a record. It's a forgetfulness, but not a forgiveness. The pardon is that forgiveness, the sealing is that forgetfulness. In 2013, I started representing a client for his pardon. His name is Ronnie Runnins. And in 2013, I started representing him. Over the next year, we put together the application, got it filed, and we had a hearing in front of the Adult Parole Authority. I show up to the Adult Parole Authority conference center over on Gettysburg there. We show up, and we're ready for this. We've got everything prepared. Ronnie had 3 felony convictions, 3 felony property convictions in 84 and 85. Because of which, his rights were forever limited. Even though he had those, after he had done his time, he came out, and for the next 30 years he worked to raise the woman he met and fell in love with and married, her kids as his own. He worked his way up to become a process engineer, something that now you can only do with a college degree, which he never got. Kept his nose to the grindstone, kept working, kept moving forward. So, end of 2013, I have this hearing for him. And we're out there, and we're getting ready for this hearing in front of the Adult Parole Authority. And I'm feeling okay. Like I said, 2% of these are granted, so hopefully we'll get a decent shot. So far, having this hearing is a good step in the right direction. This couple walks in their late 60s. They look at me after being pointed in my direction. Come up. Are you Mr. Runnins' attorney? Yes, I am. What can I do for you? They introduce themselves. They're his victims from one of his offenses in 1985. They've come there from just north of Columbus to Gettysburg, here, because they've written a letter to the Adult Parole Authority to say, hey, we don't want you to grant his pardon. He has forever changed our view of life and society. We don't trust anybody anymore. It's because of him. And they want to make sure that not only did the Adult Parole Authority get that letter, but that they heard things that they were just couldn't put it in. And so I'm thinking at this point, well, there goes my chances, 98%, right? I'm part of that 98% of the people for them. Well, we go on there, and I put forward the case. Ronnie talks, because he's talking about his life. It's not a prepared speech, it is his life. He talks about it, he answers their questions. After that, his son goes, his wife's son goes and talks, gives his presentation as he wanted to. And then the adult parole authority via video monitor turns and says, well, Mr. and Mrs. Victim, you're here today. We've got your letter. Is there anything you want to add to this? At this point, I'm thinking, well, I might as well pack up my briefcase. Maybe we can leave before everybody else does. And boy. Instead, though, she looks up and she's got tears in her eyes. She's heard his story. She turns around and tells the adult parole authority, we want you to forget the letter. Don't pay attention to it. Grant his pardon. He's gone through more. He's changed his life. He's not the same man he was 30 years ago. I couldn't believe it. I was floored and amazed by this. Well, the adult parole authority takes under advisement. They later issue a full recommendation to the governor to grant his pardon. It's not done yet, though, because the governor is under no requirement to grant the pardon. It just sits on the desk. So the next 2 years, we have a campaign. We write letters. And we do everything we can to try to get Governor Kasich to sign off on this pardon. In September of 2016, I got a phone call from the governor's office saying, congratulations, governor's going to sign his pardon. This is amazing. I can't believe it. I pick up the phone, I give Ronnie a call. Hey, governor's granting your pardon. All I hear is, that's great, gotta go. The pardon certificate overnighted to him because found out that his wife had a resurgence of breast cancer. I was in the hospital. He got that pardon on a Saturday, took in to see his wife. That very next week, she passed away. About 2 weeks later, Ronnie's in my office and we're talking. And as we're going through this, it's emotional. We've worked together for 3 years, and I've really gotten to know him well. Well, he told me two things I didn't know. First, but for his wife, when he got out of prison, he'd be dead because he would continue down the same path. The second thing I didn't know, the entire reason he came to see me in the first place, she pushed him to do it. She wanted him to do it. He was fine. She wanted him to get this, to move on with his life.
She wanted what?
She wanted him to apply and pursue the pardon, to move on with his life. I can tell you now he's doing better. He's moved on with his life. He's continuing that. He keeps that memory, and we talk regularly. This kind of optimism, though, is great for pardons, but only 2% are ever granted. What do we do about that other wide swath of people that come out, they've paid their debt to society, they are ineligible by law for a sealing of record or expungement? What do we do? In 2012, the General Assembly passed something called the Certificate of Qualification for Employment. And what this does is if you apply through it, it goes through the prison system and their review, and then it comes to the Court of Common Pleas, my court, to say, Judge, please remove those collateral consequences to employment. Because I have a felony, I can't get a job doing X, Y, or Z. I can't have this kind of licensure. I can't get a beautician's license because I've got a felony. I can't work as a janitor in a nursing home because I have a felony. I can't go to nursing school because I have a felony. Well, CQE, when applied for and granted by the court, drops those barriers to unemployment. Or sorry, to employment. It removes those collateral consequences and lets people move forward with their lives. So that we're not just recycling and revolving door people. We're not just creating better criminals, we're creating better citizens so they can move on and get that job. Now, I want to tell people about this because at the end of the day, I've worked on the ex-offender reentry program for the county for 5 years now, trying to get awareness of this raised, trying to tell people what's going on. Because in 2017, 2 certificates of qualification for employment were granted in the entire Montgomery County common pleas. 2. One of those was one of my clients that we started with. I want to tell people about this because if you know somebody that has that issue out there, that is facing this, there's hope. There's an opportunity for you to look forward, to be optimistic about the future. It's not easy to get, but it's not impossible either. So why don't you tell people about this? I want to talk to you about these roles, these programs that show optimism in society, they show optimism in the legal profession, because you are ultimately leaders of the community that are going to go out and tell people, that know people, that interact with them. Whether it be interacting with people because, well, they might be a first responder, we can help them with Wills for Heroes. Or it might be a kid or someone facing the justice system who has options of what they can do. Or it might be somebody, well, that I've seen for the bad stuff and I want to see again for the good stuff, that can help clean up records and move them forward. All stages we have something to be able to give back, but we only get to talk about it when we know about it. You know, this group of your leaders, as I said, and so I'm going to ask you a favor, and that's to go out and talk about this, tell people about these 3 programs, to look into all the other ones you do, because you have been a catalyst for so many things and so many changes over society over time. And so I'm going to ask you to help me be a catalyst in this as well. And with that, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you. Tony, thank you very much for the invitation. And thank you all.